right to connect with their gods and ancestors, to encourage productivity in agriculture, and to serve as a motivator and means of communication during times of war. Prior to the arrival of the Europeans, there were no strings in the Americas, only winds and percussion. But with the arrival of the Spanish, several major changes to the Andean musical world emerged. The Spaniards came to the America in 1492 when Christopher Columbus arrived in the Caribbean. However, they didn't reach Peru until 1532, when Francisco Pizarro and his men conquered the Inca Empire. This means that Peru's music was influenced after 1492. The Spaniards brought European instruments, religious traditions, and music to the Andes after the new conquest. As time went on, the fusion of European and Andean influences continued, and traditional Peruvian music began to develop, giving rise to several different genres. These include the Huayno Andean music, Afro-Peruvian music, and Criollo music. The Huayno is a dance style of pre-Columbian Quechua and Mara origin. Andean folk music is from the Peruvian Andes Mountain region. Afro-Peruvian music is a fusion of African rhythms with Peruvian music. And Criollo music is a combination of European, African, and Andean music influences. Traditional Peruvian instruments like the zampoña, quena, guitar, harp, and Afro-Peruvian cajon are also part of the country's rich cultural heritage. Music is a means of cultural expression and affirmation for the Peruvian Indians and serves to unite them during social and family occasions, such as patronal events, processions, and community festivals. In this lecture recital, I will examine Peruvian Andean elements in selected works by Peruvian composer Francisco Pulgar Vidal. Pulgar Vidal was a composer, pianist, and educator, and a remarkable figure in Peruvian music. He grew up in Huánuco, a city situated between the Andes Mountain and the Amazon jungle, where his contact with music began. Surrounded by a mix of natural beauty and cultural influences, he started learning instruments like the violin, piano, and bassoon. Over time, he expanded his studies to include harmony and composition, sharpening his musical skills. He graduated from the National Conservatory of Music in Lima, and later was a professor there. He also earned a law degree from the University of San Marcos, while also pursuing doctoral studies in art and literature. Pulgar Vidal's contributions to Peruvian music earned him several prestigious awards, such as the Duncan Lavary Prize and the Kuntor National Folklore Prize. Additionally, he authored textbooks for high school music education. He was inspired by his Andean roots, and his music blends Peruvian folklore, traditional songs, dances, stories, art, and costumes that show Peru's rich culture, with rhythmic pentatonic scales and contemporary techniques, including atonality and polyrhythmic elements. In an interview from 2000, he explained that he doesn't hear music in a traditional tonal way, and that his rhythms tend to be complex. He also stated that without even realizing it, he would often music is an educational and artistic way to represent elements of Peruvian identity, especially those connected to the geography, traditions, and feelings to the Peruvian Andean people. The 7 Peruvian Suites were composed in 1972. The preface to the work includes information about Pulgar Vidal's inspiration, his compositional approach, and the use of Peruvian Andean elements. Quote, Pulgar Vidal carries out a creative interpretation within an environment of traditional musical elements, encompassing a wide geographical Andean framework of Peru. The entire musical treatment having approached from a contemporary perspective, as well as a reflection of the personal identity of the composer, both in the harmonic and rhythmic contrapuntal rhythm, ensuring that the expressive substance and spontaneity of popular song are not lost. Simple tonalities have been used, making them easily accessible in both technical and interpretative aspects. There is a persistent presence of expression of a tritonic nature derived from Catholic heraldic music, also referred to as Santiago's or Carnaval songs. Other titles such as Chimaicha and Cachua are formats closely linked to the wine genres. Suite 4 consists of 5 movements, which are printed in your program and also included on the PowerPoint slide. In musical example 1, for the first movement, the listener can note rhythmic elements suggesting carnival scenes such as energetic tempo, Alegretto, inviting people to dance and celebrate. Pulgar Vidal also includes ornaments such as grace notes and uses a variety of dynamics as well as extreme ranges of the instrument. The grace note throughout the movement provide rhythmic energy, reflecting the festive mood of the various carnival dances in Peru, such as the carnivals of Cusco, Cajamarca, Ayacucho, etc. Some carnivals personify characters of irony or mockery, such as el Ño Carnavalón, known as Quimomo, which is a carnival from Arequipa, Peru. Each region in Peru has its unique way of celebrating carnivals. Besides the use of grace notes and dynamics, Pulgar Vidal also writes Calmadamente in measure 1 and 2 of the first movement, which translate to playing mockingly. Also in measure 5, the difference in range between the 2 hands could represent the male and female roles of the dance. The octaves in the low register of the left hand, marked A, E, B, could suggest the steady, strong movement of a man, while the right hand is marked staccato, with a quicker rhythmic release, and could reflect the graceful, gentle steps of a woman. Together, they support the atmosphere suggested by the title. I will now perform musical example 1, which is in your handout and on the PowerPoint slide. Now, let us turn our attention to the second and third movement, Cachua Triste and Cachua Alegre. The word Cachua is a Hispanized word derived from the Quechua word quecha or cajawa, used in rural areas of Peru and Bolivia between the 16th and 18th centuries. The word Cachua can vary in spelling depending on the location and the language spoken in the area. It may refer to a rural dance of Inca origin, performed in a circle with a dancer holding hands, widely used in farming ceremonies and other native festivities. Now, I would like to show you a short video that demonstrates was joy transformed into music, poetry, and dance. Love often may express and felt in this genre as well, even that it was typical of youth. End quote. Rodriguez further states that there were examples of cachuas performed during funerals, religious and ceremonial occasions, and even magical cachuas. I believe that the use of the term magical is referring to the fact that cachuas often had mystical or spiritual connotation. In musical example 2 from Cachua Triste, a more sorrowful interpretation of the traditional dance is suggested. The title includes the word triste or sad, corresponding to the use of Pulgar Vidal's reflective or melancholic tone, perhaps linked to a specific event or loss. Additionally, as noted in the tempo marking, Calmadamente or calmly, the composer implies that the piece should be played in a serene and relaxed manner. The rhythm of the first two measures, an A note followed by two 16 notes, may reference the round dance rhythm mentioned earlier. This may suggest the repeated tapping sounds of the dancer's steps. In measure 2, the composer, marking cantabile expressivo, further suggests that the performer should interpret the piece expressively, almost as if singing, with delicate inflection throughout. The right hand is well suited for shaping phrases, enhancing the lyricism intended by the composer. Additionally, in measures 6 through 8, the hands move in contrary motion. This may symbolize the circular nature of the round dance. Finally, the dynamic range is limited to piano and mezzo forte, which reflects the sad nature of the title of the piece. I will now perform musical example 2. Please refer to your handout and on the PowerPoint slide. Alegre is full of joy and energy. Such a dance is usually performed during special celebrations like harvest festivals, weddings, or other happy events. This dance featured lively rhythms with a 2/4 or 3/4 time signature and syncopated parts. The tempo is generally fast, Allegro Cómodo, which adds energy and enhances the connection to the dance. Pulgar includes other descriptive terms in the music, including the siso, rural, and Andante, which means dancing. The rhythm in this movement is repetitive and uses syncopation and fast 16 notes. And like the first movement, the extreme register of the piano are used. However, they are not included in musical example 3. I will now perform musical example 3 for you, which is in your handout and on the PowerPoint slides. instruments were invented by the Incas during pre-Columbian times, and sometimes still heard today. Cascabeles are small percussion instruments which produce a bright and metallic sound when shaken. I will play recordings of all three instruments for you to hear their sound. This is Cascabeles. The corneta is a tubular wind instrument which is often handcrafted from natural materials like bamboo, cane, or wood. The sound of the corneta is bright and nasal, and this instrument was used to signal events or accompany processions or dances. This is a corneta. The bombo is a large drum and it produces a sharp character and powerful tone sound that was used to provide a foundation of the rhythm of folk dance. Vidal also provides additional instructions on how the pianist should imitate the sounds of those instruments. He writes in measure 1, tocar con la palma sobre teclas blancas y negras en el extremo agudo del piano, which means play with the palm on the white and black keys at the high end of the piano. These annotations help the performer create the effect and imitation of the cascabeles. Meanwhile, the cornet in the left hand of measure 1 could suggest the sound used to announce the bullfights to those in attendance. The bombo, heard in the left hand of measure 12, utilizes the piano's low range with a staccato touch. See musical example 4, and I will now perform it for you. Please refer to your handout and on the PowerPoint slides. First, you will hear the corneta and cascabeles, and second, the bombo. The next work I will discuss is Sonatina Chuscada, a work in 3 movements written in 1972. This piece is a blend of Western classical forms with Peruvian Andean elements such as the Chuscada. Sonatinas are typically shorter and less technically challenging than sonatas. They are commonly used for teaching purposes. The Chuscada is characterized by its humble, popular, and playful origins. It reflects the feelings and experiences of its people while being deeply rooted in the rich cultural heritage of Ancash. It is still performed today during local festivities. The term can have multiple meanings and can also refer to something that is mocking or humorous. The term Chuscada is related to the wine mentioned earlier and is often referred to as the Ancashino wine. The origin of the term Chuscada dates back to the 19th century and is attributed to Simón Bolívar, Venezuela's statesman and military officer, who was visiting the village of Hantu Huaylas in Ancash. Bolívar visited the village where he heard a group of indigenous people performing a traditional wine. He was captivated by the charm and flair of the music and dance and exclaimed, "What? Que chusco!" End quote. will now perform musical example 5, which is in your handout and on the PowerPoint slide. I'm gonna start a few measures prior to the beginning of this example. The character of the second movement differs from that of the first movement. It is more lyrical and melancholic, demonstrating the thematic diversity of the Andante or Chuscada. Themes of the Andante can not only include the lively and rhythmic elements we have noted above, but also recurring themes of lament or loneliness. Subjects might involve the separation of couples, absence of a loved one, disappointment, infidelity, unrequited love, lack of companionship, or separation due to work circumstances. In the following anonymous text from an Andante titled Te adornará de diamantes, which means I will adorn you with diamonds, the lover is scorned due to the fact that love is not reciprocated from his beloved. See figure 1 in your handout for the text from the Andante, which I will now read it for you. Why will I have loved? Why will I have adored? To someone who does not know how to love, to someone who does not know how to adore. In another anonymous text from an Andante titled Zorro Zorro, which means Fox Fox, the person cannot sleep because they need the presence of their partner. See figure 2 in your handout, and now I will read it for you. I can't sleep alone. I turn from one side to the other. I turn and you are not there. The second movement is in a minor key, features a moderate tempo, and includes markings such as Triste, Cantando, and Expresivo. The composer also incorporates a range of dynamics, such as piano, mezzo piano, crescendo, decrescendo, mezzo forte, and diminuendo. Vidal indicates that the movement should be performed siempre ligado, or always legato. All of these expressive markings help to convey emotional depth and a sense of grief and reflection, and contribute to the contrasting character of this piece. I will now perform musical example 6 for you, which is in your handout and on the PowerPoint slide. Vidal composed significant and meaningful works alongside his dedication to music education. His impact greatly enriched the musical heritage of his native Peru. In conclusion, the music of the Andes in Peru exhibits a rich and dynamic diversity of style, structures, and musical languages. The preservation and perpetuation of indigenous musical tradition of the inhabitants of the Andes in Peru are a testament to the enduring significance and cultural heritage of this cultural music. My aim is to bring attention to selected works by pianists through an understanding of the Peruvian ending element, which is part of it. The selected pieces offer a wonderful exploration into Peruvian rhythmic and folk elements, and my hope is that they begin to receive the recognition they deserve. I will now take a brief pause and perform this work for you. Thank you so much for attending.